Welcome back, guys, to the EUS Challenger Series number 19. We have a game for you. We're in game number 3 here between Gamers2 and Departed in our semi-final number 2. Let's get things underway.
We are actually into the game, and we did miss the second game, unfortunately, but this is a 1-to-1 series, of course, because we are in the third game, and if it wasn't 1-to-1, this would never have happened. Everyone's just fanning out. I don't think we're going to see any early aggression.
No, again, I think we'll be fairly standard here, and unfortunately we couldn't bring you guys the picks and the bans phase, but that was because we wanted to ensure we could get into the game without building false hope like we have done many times in the past couple of days.
Okay, so Dialda's just heading around the side, and hopefully NIQ doesn't get caught out here, but the ping did go down, and they know where he is, and Bull is actually the team manager and just stepping in for this game.
Yeah, we saw him actually do pretty well in game number 1, if I'm being honest. Didn't die too much, which is, you know, one of the things that you'd expect from a player that maybe isn't at the challenger level. May end up finding himself in some precarious places, but it didn't seem to happen too much.
And when you're an AD carry, that's exactly what you don't want happening, dying too much. But these guys aren't attempting any of that early aggression we spoke about before, and item builds are, in fact, identical from both teams.
Yep. Everything's pretty standard, though. That's what I'd expect out of most teams. JWoww's trying to lay down some aggression here around this blue buff area. Doesn't quite land the cleaver onto Kikis, but he has a lot of backup here.
Doesn't matter, they're going to shove him away from that blue buff. NIQ has arrived, and this is the 3 versus 3. They've gone for the lane swap up, and blue buff is still under contention. The auto attacks go over the wall, and who's going to secure this? The smite misses!
Oh,
and JWoww is going to be the one to pick it up.
JWoww picks it up. The smite not quite landing for Kikis. That is a big play there. It's now a 2v1 up in the top lane, and that Mundo with blue buff, although it won't give him too much because obviously Mundo not a mana regen champion, gave him a bit of experience, will also allow him to throw out cleavers a little bit more often, provided his health will suffice for that one.
And Kikis has had to go all the way to the other buff, and his smite won't be up for a little while either, so he's going to have to try and kite away from this, make sure the Spiderlings tank it. But Lee Sin, Morden, is now massively ahead of his counterpart.
Yeah, that's one of the big things there about having a buff stolen away. There is now Lee Sin's able to go back into his own jungle, pick up both, and then continue things forward as this game goes on. So it looks like Lee Sin already with that advantage. Lee Sin pretty much both early game junglers, so any advantage you can get this early on actually will kind of swing the balance of that in your favor pretty handily.
Top lane, Babunia gets actually locked up. Bull puts down some damage and lands the third proc of Silver Bolt. Babunia not having a fun time in top lane, and in fact has no CS compared to the 8 CS of JWoww, who's now trying to CS underneath that turret. And it's kind of a race to see who can take down this turret first, and because of the changes to towers, the bot tower is significantly weaker than the top one.
And it's interesting that Gamers2 would be the ones to really initiate this lane swap, because Vayne does not push anywhere nearly as quickly as Sivir. Neither does a Thresh lane either. They've got a little bit more kill potential in their lane, since hooks are a little bit easier to land than an Annie stun at this point. You have to burn flash for it, but I guess they really wanted to avoid the trundle match.
Kikis just walks into top lane, lands a cocoon, and then dies, and Babunia, his lane has just gone from bad to worse.
I was a little bit focused on bottom lane on that one, so I didn't see it really appearing, but yeah, this game is going from bad to worse here, as you said, for Kikis, but I guess they just want to avoid this Trundle-Mundo matchup, but I don't know how that's going to work in their favour.
That's not the worst matchup you can have for a Mundo either, or for a Mundo. Despite them putting them into a 1 versus 2, and plus the fact that Kikis has just been dropped, the red buff is going to go to Bull, and he's in magnificent shape.
Yeah, I mean, the key difference here being that Kikis dropping there really just has instantly gratified this lane swap for them. They've managed to pick up a kill in a situation where really Departed would not have wanted to give that away at all. That's not what you want in these lane swaps at all. Morden, going to go aggressive in the bottom lane, is actually taking a lot of damage in return.
We have both of the junglers just sitting in, making these 2 versus 2s, but because Kikis died and Babunia was dropped so low and didn't have the support of his jungler, unlike bot lane, he wasn't able to catch that wave on the way out. So he's only on 5 CS compared to 27 to Mundo, and a huge gold discrepancy is already opening up despite only 1 kill going down.
And that is a massive, massive difference because Mundo really farms a little bit easier as well throughout the game. Trundle doesn't really have the equivalent of the Burning Agony that you can just sit in the wave with Mundo. And between Burning Agony and Sunfire Cape, you just naturally take down the minions from the wave. Trundle has to work a little bit harder for that. It's still fairly easy once you get the Sunfire Cape, but having a lead like this should establish JWoww really well into the rest of the game. Here comes Morden into the bottom.
He lands the Q, but the stun has also landed. Big Ignite has come down. I don't think that'll be enough to finish off Morden, but it will be enough to push him out of commission.
This turret is very low in the bottom lane though, and you can see up in top lane, Babunia's turret has been held to over 3/4 of its health as well, and that tower will fall in the bottom lane right now, and it's a game of who can rotate round the better. Kikis will help Babunia here to keep the wave away from the turret. Hook doesn't land. Babunia's pretty safe here up in this top lane.
Bot turret has fallen, and that gives them the opportunity to go for the lane swap up. The early tower will swing the gold total back even.
Well, there's two options here. Civ or Annie can stay in the bottom lane, which it doesn't look like they're doing. They are going to recall out. It depends on where they head from when they go back. They can either look to take down the inner tower, which kind of leaves Babunia still in the punishment and requires Kikis' help up in that top lane, or they can swap their duo lane up to the top and try and battle with this 2v2 situation, but Babunia is going to lose a lot of health.
Play comes backwards, and they might even land the second round of Silver Bolt. That's not going to be the case. Assyria heading into the mid lane. See if they can push this one in, definitely with the help of NIQ, who can basically clear out a minion wave almost instantly.
Yeah, he's got a lot of wave clear as well, and there's just so much wave clear on the side of Departed, and one of the things we've seen in the last two games, unfortunately we didn't catch the game 2, but both games went very long, flash forced out by Ocelot.
He's not going to be heading into the chamber anytime soon. But top lane is something they have to be concerned about. Babunia is so far behind. He scales okay, but most of his advantages come from how good he is in laning phase and going in that 1v1. And I feel like Mundo might be far enough ahead now that he can just out-trade Trundle, especially at this stage when he doesn't have that level 6 perm. Has taken a Sonic Wave, but Morden doesn't choose to follow up on it. Dragon's going to be going down to Departed, and they do claim that gold lead very, very slightly.
Yeah, and it'll be very short-lived as well, because top tower is about to go down to Gamers2 as well, and one of the disadvantages of having that duo lane up in the top is you can't fight Dragon. Ocelot taking a lot of damage again, forced to use the Shockwave.
Icarus drops very low. Ignite is still ticking, but I don't think it's going to be enough to take him down. It was very close. Another 2 ticks would have done the job. But that has evened up the towers. And this game is already very back and forth. But because both of the top and bottom towers have fallen respectively, has given them a slight advantage over Dragon, which is why we saw them take that just a couple of seconds ago. Diode lands a perfect hook onto Babunia, follows in with the Dark Passage. Morden now coming over the wall from blue buff. That's a dead Trundle. That's also a dead blue buff.
It is going over to the team of Gamers2 again, so no blue buffs on the side of Departed in this game yet at all, and that's a pretty bad start for the jungle route of Departed. However, they've been able to find themselves in front of turrets in the bottom lane already, and one of the things I was going to bring up earlier was the way the games have been going later and later. Departed have really good wave clear here, and that's one of the aspects that the later a game goes, the better it can be for your team. If you have a lot of wave clear, you're able to survive through a lot of sieges very easily. Waters is taking a lot of damage here, taking a couple of turret shots that he didn't mean to, but between Ziggs and Sivir, they have great wave clear potential should they end up locked inside their base.
For that to happen though, they need to stabilize the game, and at the moment, the game is accelerating definitely into the hands of Gamers2. Because constantly they are taking down these towers and going after objectives, then Departed may not even get to the point where they can just get a stack of members and clear out those minion waves.
Now, to look at the itemization, pretty much standard in all lanes. The only actual surprising thing is Warden's Mail on Trundle, which isn't surprising for the fact that he's building a Warden's Mail. It's that it's this early on in the game. Normally you'd see a Trundle opt for Sunfire Cape or Blade of the Rune King is one of their first items, and then the other being their second, and seemingly in this 1v2 against Vayne, they want to slow down those auto attacks, make sure she can't get those silver bolts procs as fast as possible. NIQ's trapped.
He's taking some damage. Morden whiffs the Sonic Wave and NIQ sidesteps it, so that's going to be the end of that mid-lane engagement. But I have to wonder whether Baboonia was expecting a prolonged 1 versus 2, which has now ended, because now it's going to be a 1 versus 1, and that Woods Mail isn't going to do as much. Kickers is going against these two members in mid lane. Repel comes up, Juice out of the way, Morden lands another Q into the Shockwave. He will get the execute down. Bats on off using Command Protect. JWoww has come in from the top lane, lands the Cleaver. The Mega Inferno Bomb comes down. Too many jinxes in the current Challenger series, which is causing some issues. Diode lands the box into the Flay. In fact, will whiff it. This is a 1 versus 2. Bull still has huge amounts of damage, trading off against Wooliter. Juice a couple of skill shots, and Wooliter is still following after. Morden comes in to flash over the wall. The Q misses, and Woolite is in good shape. He wants to go back in this and try and land to auto attacks, but does not want to stick around with Ocelot and JWoww coming in from the mid lane.
He's temporarily in good shape, but he's on the run now as well. Wooliter managing to get good trade there, but Morden's going to find him. Oh, wait, Morden's going to get dropped pretty quickly as well.
Wooliter just needs to land one auto attack, but also gets hit by the Cleaver. JWoww comes in from the bot side again. The Boomerang doesn't land, but the Sonic Wave and the Resonating Strike will.
Morden playing dangerously there. The return of the Boomerang very nearly matched up with his Resonating Strike. Could have very, very closely died there, but nevertheless survived through that one on minimal health. But to go back to how that engaged, Flash Reverse Flay is one of the most difficult things you can do in the game. A lot of supports will say that's technically and mechanically one of the absolute hardest support mechanics to nail, and it's not too surprising that they don't land it 100% of the time, as a little bit of a whiff meant that was a bit closer than they would have liked it from their engagement.
It's pretty difficult if you think about it, because you're flashing forwards and then you have to instantly move your mouse backwards for the Flay direction, unless you're like flashing forwards and pushing them backwards.
It's the fact that you can't just aim behind you with Flay either. You can't just be to the left of you and then to the right of you if you're on red side. You have to angle the Flay as well.
Yeah.
So you have to go to the exact angle that you need to Flay backwards. Otherwise, you kind of Flay backwards in the wrong angle and you look like really stupid because you've like completely bungled your Flay up.
Pretty difficult maneuver. So top laners, Mundo and now Baboonia on that Trundle, but because of that early game shenanigans that have been happening with the lane swap ups, JWoww is significantly ahead of Baboonia, 30 CS and 2 assists, and almost on his Sunfire cape. But Baboonia, however, is still going towards that Randuins, which will help him against JWoww, but it won't completely help him since a lot of that damage is magic damage.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that I didn't catch when he built the Warden's Mail. I think that's the biggest thing to take away from this, is that I agree with you that I think he was expecting a prolonged 2v1, but certainly in this case it would have been more beneficial to have a Sunfire cape that Morden will get out of this one alive. The Thresh Express is there to get him over that Dragon Wall, and Dragon will be spawning in just over 10 seconds, and that's our next fight. Hook lands.
Death Sentence comes through, the box comes out, Kickers has already flashed, Morden comes out, looks for the insect, and the Shockwave comes in. That's going to see securing the kill onto Kickers, and that is probably the most easy Dragon follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, now Departed, if they want to contest this, no smite is available, and they don't have the numbers either, but that's a Dragon going down fairly uncontested, extending the gold lead even further here.
2-7 is the current scoreline, and a 4K advantage to Gamers2. They're continuing that advantage, and something we saw from the first game as well, is they didn't have the biggest advantage in the world, but they kept that advantage, and it continued to increase. And by the time it was 46 minutes into the game, they could use that gold advantage to finish it out. So we'll see if they can recapture some of that form of glory, or in Game 2 that we never actually saw, we'll see if they get taken down by Departed.
Yeah, that's one of my questions, is I wonder how Game 2 went with regards to who had control, especially considering it was a long game again, so I wonder whether Gamers 2 had control similar to game number 1 and ended up losing it, or whether it was the opposite of that and Departed had control. But I mean, it looks to be a repeat in this game of game number 1. This is a little bit further ahead than Gamers 2 were, but it most certainly is not beyond the reaches of Departed to come back into this. One thing Departed have to be very careful of is a fed Vayne, and Vayne is up on CS and equal on kills. And Vayne getting in through the mid game, getting more kills, will be disastrous no matter how much wave clear Departed have.
Departed don't really have an answer to Vayne either. Maybe you could have Babunia being there in teamfight, but him being put behind early will make that a non-factor, and they don't really have anything else to deal with Vayne. If Kickers is jumping onto the back line, they have so much peeling just in the form of Ocelot, Orianna, and Diode fresh that it's unlikely you'll be able to do very much at all. Dragon's Rage late game can also be used as a peeling tool, so they either need to find Vayne in a really awkward position or in straight-up teamfights just kind of lose.
And one of the problems is I don't know whether you'll find Vayne in a particularly awkward position when you consider the front line that is there already. I mean, that Dr. Mundo is already building himself towards being unstoppable in this game. No deaths on him yet, yes, no kills, but NIQ now might be in trouble as well.
With Lee Sin collapsing from the side and AI going down, that will spell the end of Ziggs and maybe the end of Kickers as well. JWoww is just sticking on him like Singed Mega Adhesive. Morden comes around, doesn't need to do anything.
And this is going to be heavy pressure onto this turret. I don't think Babunia can actually do anything about this. I mean, with that Randuin's only, he's not able to really contend against the Orianna there because he has no real magic resist yet. And it just means that another turret goes in favor of Gamers2.
Departed aren't able to upset the momentum currently from Gamers2, meaning they can't really utilize Sivir's amazing counter push. They've got Ziggs there, they've got Wooliter on that Sivir, but they're never able to sit themselves underneath a turret and continuously push away the mini-waves. In that case, Ziggs was taken down, and Elise was basically put out of the action, so they couldn't utilize that wave clear.
And if they can't utilize one of their biggest strengths, then that already is signaling the, not the end of the game as such, but a difficult period for the game because they need to do something to get themselves back into this one. And they're down in CS in multiple lanes as well. Only really the bottom lane is going fairly even here, and it's just not good. You can see Sivir trying to trade with Vayne.
Flash into the Tibbers, comes down, picks up the kill into Fresh, and now the support versus the two-man stack. JWoww and Bull are just hammering away at Perm. Will be taking down the second kill, 1 for 2, and Vayne is just getting even more fed.
And that's going to be very problematic. As a very small consolation from that fight, they've used the teleport from JWoww when it may not have been overly necessary, but that's the tiniest of benefits from that now. He's flashed forward, lands the cleaver.
But that means JWoww's coming in from a direction you wouldn't usually expect him to come from, that being bot lane, and easily picking up that kill onto the mid lane of NIQ.
And now JWoww is a 3-0-2 from 0-0-2. Now has himself a significant amount of gold as well. He's nearly 2,000 ahead in lane. Another tower is going to go down in the bottom lane as well. So 4 towers total here for Gamers2. They are in full control.
Wooliter just against Bull, taking large amounts of damage. Morden doesn't quite land the Sonic Wave, can't get the follow-up. But still, they just do not have the amount of members needed to stop the bleeding of gold.
It's so difficult at this point. When you consider how far ahead Vayne is right now, compared to her lane opponent, 1,000 gold on a Sivir coming out of this is so beneficial. And we even thought that perhaps the lane swap may work against them, but picking up that kill onto Kikis in the early game, and the number of kills and little assists they've got since is great. Flay doesn't land, but the hook does.
But lands it when he gets out of the Mega Inferno Bomb comes down, does not do enough damage to reclaim himself a kill. 3-13, and Gamers2 have such a large advantage. However, Departed, we've already mentioned, one of their core mechanics of their team composition is that wave clear.
That will help them survive if they can get to a stable point, and Morden is going to steal away the blue buff again. I really don't think Departed have had one this game. I missed the 13-minute spawn, but certainly they aren't getting that one.
Okay, so Morden recalling back to base. How much gold has he got to play with? Quite significant for a jungler, 1,100. Going to be picking up a Giant's Belt. Mid lane, however, Wooliter dodging the ball all day. And still dodging that ball. Can't quite hit him.
Yeah, it's at least it's a skill shot you can see coming pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even a skill shot really. It's I don't know what you call that actually.
A reposition.
Could you call it maybe an orbital ability?
Or Boltal? Or I don't know.
It's that time of the day where you've turned into Freak.
Fortunately, but what isn't Freak is the dragon, which will be taken down by Gamers2.
Or Baboonia in the top lane, who's used the Pillar of Ice and gets himself away from that one. But yeah, everything on the map seems to be going the way of Gamers2 right now. That's another dragon they've taken down, although the first one, if I'm not mistaken, went over to Departed because they had the numbers advantage down in the bottom side of the map. However, Gamers2 really, wherever they go in any of the lanes, just are picking advantages left, right and centre.
It's at the stage in the game right now where, well, Morden's kind of just sitting on top of a pink ward, and Kickers smites it away because it was still warded. I'm not entirely sure why they decided to nuke that down first, but either way, they're still putting and applying pressure onto Departed.
Well, at least Departed will be pretty happy that they managed to secure one of their buffs on this rotation. As you know, they've struggled a little bit on getting the rest of them, as Gamers2 have just been all over their jungle.
I mean, red buff is kind of less important at this stage when they need a blue buff on NIQ just for that wave clear, just for him to sit in mid lane, because Syria can clear one wave, but Gamers2 are so strong they can just split push and go for multiple attacks on different lanes. So they need wave clear all over the place, and NIQ cannot sustain himself just within the Fiends and Holy Grail with the amount of skill shots he's having to throw out.
Morden forced to use the reveal there on the ward, since the pink ward spotted it going down but wasn't quite in range of picking it up. But nice use of the kit there for Lee Sin to make sure he took out that ward. And now it's a race to see whether Morden can save the pink ward to deter Kickers.
He lands the safeguard, doesn't land anything else, and Kickers will be taking down that pink ward. Morden made that gold investment, already taken away by Kickers, but that's a small consolation prize considering he's 0-4, and 3-0-4 is the scoreline from Morden, and most of those kills have been on the Lees.
Yeah, he's really been trading so well with the Lees in this game, and Ocelot using that shield to his advantage in the middle lane, just soaking up some of the damage. And the more damage like that can go into shields of Ocelot here, the more mana Ziggs will use. And again, you mentioned that that's how the wave clear is going to come from Ziggs, is you require blue buff for the mana to throw out the bombs fairly often. And if you don't have blue buff and your bombs aren't landing damage, they're just reducing shields, then you're almost using mana for nothing.
Again, the ward fight is continuing in the jungle, and it looks like Gamers2 are coming out on top this time. Q lands onto the minion, and the push is now starting in the bot lane for Gamers2. NIQ has come down, Kickers is waiting in the jungle, sitting right on top of a ward, and Ocelot is also hanging around.
Looks like this one's about to boil over though. There's the stun.
Tibbers comes down and Bull is on the backside. Dialed is just getting behind him, forming that tanky front line for his AD carry, and Ocelot is now chasing after Kickers, picks himself up the Bull, has a couple Spadlings in front of him, uses Dissonance to speed himself up, but is now caught in no man's land. NIQ follows up, the Mega Inferno Bomb comes down, the auto attacks are coming out as well, the Satchel Charge comes in, and slowly NIQ is trying to take Ocelot down, but the Command Protector is keeping him alive. The Volatile Spadling is not going to finish that one off, it will be NIQ.
Ooh, down in the bottom lane, there's a trade barrier forced out of Vayne, flashes over the wall. Nice mechanics to keep himself safe there.
Bull is getting out and doesn't quite have the lifesteal or anything to lifesteal off. That isn't Wooliter also there with them. So, top lane, JWoww is kind of becoming an issue. 200 farm, 3-0-2, and already on his second tank item and almost on his third. Wooliter making sure that Bull does not recall anytime soon.
I don't know how they're going to be able to stop both Vayne and JWoww right now. That's two very high priority champions right now that are going to be difficult to deal with, because if you're focusing everything on Mundo to kill him, then nobody's focusing Vayne. If you're not focusing Vayne, Vayne will kill you. So it's pretty difficult here on where their focus has to be in these team fights, because while that's all going on, Orianna will be outputting significant damage as well, Shockwave will hold you all in place, and there's just a lot to be thinking of in these team fights, and it looks like Departed are going to have to fight them oh so carefully.
It depends what type of team fight they find themselves as well. Morden finds NIQ Insect backwards into Ocelot, the ultimate comes down, actually finds itself perm. The Incinerate comes down, stuns up 3 members, Dialed doesn't land his hook. They have prevented any members from dying today, but 25 minutes into the game, that might just be enough by itself to either find themselves a Baron or just bait out Baron.
I was going to say, this is aggressive maneuvering. They're looking for a catch here. As They've got Departed heading towards the Baron. I don't think they're actually strong enough to do that right now. Nice ultimate out of 6.
Mega Inferno Bomb picks up 1 and they will continue the chase. JWoww's a high priority target but might not get the regen in time. Repel comes out and that will be enough damage. Shutdown comes out for Kickers to ball over the wall. Angers the Baron, but it's Departed who are going to be starting it, and this might be a bit of a desperation play.
If Ocelot can keep Oriana's ball in the pit, it will grant them vision on it, but he hasn't sent the ball in yet, and Morden will jump over.
He doesn't get it, jumps back out again, and Departed swing the gold. Not in their favour, but have definitely reduced the gold gap a fair way.
Morden had such a small window of time there that they actually had vision in the pit that I'm surprised that they actually cancelled the ball being in the Baron area, and that really swings this game right the way around on top of its head. Because, okay, the gold advantage is now on the side of... it's still on the side of Gamers2. The Baron regen is going to be significant enough that they can now wave clear everything they need to.
Baron buff is going to help them out massively, and Sivia's actually now got 36 AP, which doesn't help all that much, but I don't think anything scales with AP now on Sivia's kit. Oh, I think the Boomerang Blade still does by a reduced ratio.
Yeah, it's actually 0.5 scaling by the looks of it. She's benefiting 18 AP damage from that, so...
Well, it's still an advantage, even though it's a small one.
The little victories.
They'll take everything they can get at this stage, being 6 and 13 down in this game. This is the third game in this best of 3. We didn't manage to spectate the second, but Gamers2, all have Departed. If they pick up this game, they will be progressing onto the grand finals against the Foxhound.
Yet they will be advancing indeed if they can win this, but... we're down to game number 3, so it's do or die for both of these teams here. Really, that's what being in game number 3 means.
Absolutely. So, 4-1 is the current tower advantage, but this game has been kind of stopped in its tracks. At least Gamers2's pushing, because Wooliter is maybe pushing up a little too far, but with the rest of the team behind him, he should be safe. That Baron buff will just prevent Gamers2 from really doing anything unless they find themselves a pick for the next couple minutes. Perm has been hit by Morden's Q, but no one is really behind him to follow up. Fresh was a little too far away, and he doesn't have any damage behind it.
Vane's building towards her first defensive item here, and I have to wonder, we're only at a Negatron cloak stage here, and that could either be towards a Banshee's Veil or towards a Quicksilver Sash. Now, I would imagine it would be a Quicksilver Sash due to the stuns that will come out from Annie, but both are a viable option here. But the fact that Vayne is at a point to build towards a defensive item first is pretty difficult for Departed to deal with, and Departed have managed to catch up on the CS on their AD carry, but the problem is Vayne and Sivir don't really compare when it comes to late game. Vayne is significantly better at team fighting than Sivir is.
However, Sivir is significantly better at wave clearing, and that's kind of what these guys need at the moment. But they need to at least stall the game out until they can push back in again. They haven't quite hit that stage. Even with Baron buff, they've stabilized the game, but they haven't made any significant pushes themselves.
Now, it's just a game of ward clearing, pushing out the top and bottom waves, making sure that you have the control over the map. You can see, actually, most of the wards in this game are fixed around the jungle of Departed. Looks like Gamers2 want as much vision of that lower jungle as possible. Not really seen ward patterns like this too much, where one team has half of their jungle warded and the other has the other, but nevertheless, it's certainly an interesting game so far on this one.
It is, and Gamers2, despite being massively ahead, have slowed down significantly. Baron buff will be falling off in the next couple seconds, and it might be the opportunity for Gamers2 to start pushing in again. Vayne is in bot lane against Wooliter, but Wooliter is still slightly ahead. It's still very close in the bot lane.
It is, but you can see the damage coming out from those static shift proxies just tagging on to Wooliter every now and again, making sure that you're just chipping him down little by little so that when he does try to trade, there's really no way he can take it. But Gamers2 have really been slowed down a lot here by Departed, and they were already trying to build pace in this game. Ultimate, did that go over to Ocelot? Oh
no, NIQ picked it up with the Mega Inferno Bomb.
Yeah, I was going to say, I couldn't quite see who picked it up because both of them had a blue, but Ocelot's just timed out.
I think that was blind as well. I don't think he had any vision over the wall. I heard someone flashing in the bot lane. That would be Wooliter, but Bull was getting ganked by Elise. will now carry on backing off. The 1 versus 1 AD carry trade continues in the bot lane, and everyone being so low, they're going to go for this one. And Bull is so close. Wooliter will be the one coming out on top.
So, Vayne trades better than Sivir when you don't take both shots of a boomerang blade before the fight even begins.
Yeah.
That was just a little bit of mistiming there by Vayne to re-engage that fight. And Warden's going to try and fight Wooliter as well, but hasn't landed abilities, and Spell Shield managed to juke off the first one.
Dowd has come into this one though. Hook comes across. Will not even need to be spell shielded, as it did get sidestepped by Wooliter, but Perm also came down, and JWoww appears from nowhere. I believe he just used a teleport.
He didn't, and that's another big fact in stalling out the game, is that's another large cooldown that's not available, and really Departed lost nothing for that. Other than time, which they need to stall out anyway, Departed are getting the better of these trades.
Oh, coming out ahead, the Hook comes over the wall, barely misses Perm. 1 minute 30 on Dragon and also Baron, which will be the next objective, and it'll be interesting to see who actually gets into the Baron area, not even first, but who will win that fight, because despite this game being stalled out, Gamers2, if they find themselves on open ground against Departed, they'll probably still win the fight.
They just have to find those fights, though. Departed aren't really giving them to them yet, and the thing is, Departed haven't started any progress on any turrets other than the one that they got in bottom lane very early because of that lane swap. And that means that Departed are going to have to win more and more fights to be able to take objectives down, because of the fact that waves are constantly pushing in towards them. They're going to have to face tank down turrets, and they're going to lose a lot of health from it. So Baron is going to be another really important time in this game. At 40 seconds until it spawns, we might see another attempt at it, but one of the teams is going to have to pick somebody off first.
And the scariest part about the pre-Baron kind of area is that Perm was already placed down the wards. He wasn't caught out, even though Morden and JWoww were around the area. Babuni is tanky enough at the moment where he can't really get caught out by one person, but Mundo is still significantly ahead of him when it comes to trading. Baron up in 15 seconds. And Departed seem like they're slightly out of position. Wooliter is still in the bot lane, he's the only person he can really stop Bull at the moment. And Kikus is maybe looking to get this pick beforehand, which would help significantly. Into the Spider Form, can't quite land the repel just yet, but Lee Sin has come in from the north side, has been warded out, and the Golem's already been taken, so he's going to have to take the long route.
Dragon went in favour of Gamers2, so they're going to hold their gold lead for now, but they're stacking 4 in this bottom jungle area with no teleport on JWoww, though. This is a big commit out of Gamers2 if they decided to go for it. They will back off. They know Baron is live. They've seen multiple members of Departed in the bottom lane, so this is a good time to recall, because there's no way Departed can rush a Baron if Gamers2 recall now.
And the fact that they had to rotate to bot lane is still just delaying the game, which is helping out Departed. The longer they can stall it, the more farm they get, the easier it is to get back into the game, because they're still generating gold even though they're behind on kills, and they can clear out the wave very quickly with their team comp. But with the Baron being live, everyone's heading towards that area from Gamers2 and also Departed, or rather Departed need to make that rotation. Wooliter is kind of just hanging around the bot lane.
There's the sweeper trinket being used, just trying to clear out as many wards as they can. They found the one that Perm had already placed in the bush, and now it's just a case of denying vision, making sure that you're forcing Departed to really overextend if they want to get into this Baron area, but they're playing this so slowly that I don't think Departed will really look to commit on this.
Departed are essentially completely choked the vision around the Baron area, and they are desperately trying to get these wards down, but with 4 sweepers from the team of Gamers2, they are making sure those wards drop almost instantly. They aren't able to make the commit onto Baron just yet, though. But Departed, they're still hanging around, but they're being pushed so far back. By the time they react, Baron might already fall, and Baron's already at 50% HP, and it is dropping like a fly. Bull being on there. Diode lands a perfect grab onto Kickers, delaying them even further. The ultimate comes down from Ziggs. It's not going to quite finish off the Baron, and they are trying to find themselves a target. The stun comes down from Perm. The cleaver doesn't land, but he is not in a good position. The Randuin's dies, or the Randuin's comes down, and Perm will die. Morden lands a Q onto NIQ, gets the insect back, but it will be cancelled though. Just back into his team. JWoww now tanking the turret. In fact, the aggro is switched onto Vayne. He has to back on off. A huge ultimate. The shockwave coming in to the team of Departed might be enough to just win out this team fight completely. But everyone is splitting up this aggro onto the tower. Everyone is so low from Gamers2.
That was an amazing pillar. If I saw that right, the pillar denied the knockback on NIQ. I'd have to watch that again for certain, but after that, a big shockwave shredded through the members of Departed, and they were able to take them down. That's an inhibitor turret down. They've got to be careful that Ziggs doesn't have too much damage here, as the Mega Inferno Bomb is going to be up soon, but Gamers2 take down the first inhibitor of the game and will recall from this.
Gamers2 have really started to pick up the pace again though. The momentum is definitely back in their court. They're ahead in gold by over 10k. They've got the Baron buff as well. So they can do whatever they want. They can just recall, or they can just carry on pushing. How much gold do they have to play with? Actually, almost all of them, or 3 of them, are over 2k. So yeah, they are going to make the decision to back off. They don't want to stick around, especially when Willita is coming back from the spawn pad.
Yeah, they want to make sure that they don't get picked off too quickly, and I'm actually just indulging myself in that. Yeah, it looked like NIQ actually flashed it, so it looked like the pillar was what denied it, but there was a flash in there as well. So yeah, sorry, just catching up because that was a funny little interaction that I wanted to double check on what happened.
It was a cluster of abilities, and any one of those abilities could have done the disruption, but. Yeah, like the other thing you can do in that situation, because Morden used flash instead of ward jumping, if he had ward jumped, then he could have flashed behind the flash from NIQ. But yeah, he couldn't at that stage.
That would have been some pretty clutch reactions there.
Insec has done it himself, man. I've seen it. But I don't think I've seen anyone else other than him do that.
That's because Insec like really is Lee Sin. They are one and the same. Yeah. That player just has so many more mechanics that nobody even knows about still to bring out, I'm sure. They're just in a playbook somewhere deep in his mechanical brain.
Ready for Season 4 finals, and Ocelot, well, I mean, the Mega Inferno Bomb sort of clipped the minions, took out the caster line, and the rest of his abilities will finish off the rest. Gamers2, when they're in a 5-man stack, will also force a 5-man stack from Departed, and because there's so much wave clear, they won't really be able to do too much. Monday was in the top lane, so they're going to have to send someone up there, but even if they just have Ziggs or Willita there, they'll completely stall the minion line.
Teleport is available though, so there is the option of bringing a member in for a 5v4 should Departed commit to this, but it's just a case of Gamers2 now shockwaving NIQ.
NIQ doesn't quite drop. Dropped very low, and there was a lot of ultimates used on that, but the tower's taking a beating. Willita is completely out of position, gets tagged by Dowd, and gets taken down, and 60 seconds on that death timer will result in definitely another tower falling. JWoww just apparently doesn't even care about Baboonia's harassment, and that bot lane is a lot harder to defend without the AD carry being there. NIQ has come back from base, and we'll clear out those minion waves again, but the top tower has fallen to JWoww, and he really needs to commit someone stronger to him.
Did I really see JWoww tank a turret and a Trundle at the same time for a good 20 seconds there? That was impressive. Super Minions already on the Nexus turrets as well. That's another inhibitor going down. That's a third inhibitor of the game. Gamers2 will just close this one out here.
This may just be the game right here, and now JWoww did use the teleport to jump a couple inches. Mega Inferno Bomb comes out and does delete Ocelot. Morden gets caught out. JWoww comes in from the top side. Kikis is still tanking up along with Baboonia. He is also just as tanky as he's showing JWoww. And now the Sadism has been used. His regeneration has been halved. The shutdown comes out onto Bull. 60 seconds left on that, and Departed lived for another day.
That was massive amount of damage out of NIQ. Luckily his ultimate came back just in time to delete 2 members of Gamers2 and just completely wipe that fight around, and that was kind of crazy how that turned around. I thought that was certainly in favour of Gamers2. They had a big stack of minions from both top and mid on the Nexus. Dragon goes down in favour of Gamers2, and now Departed have to close this game, well, have to stabilise from being all turrets and all inhibitors down.
Willita is making a push in the mid lane. 2 minutes left on Baron, which will be another challenge for them to overcome, but Willita might just be able to take another turret here, except nope, the Ricochet has moved on to Dialed, and he takes her aggro, so he has to back off.
Thankfully for them, one inhibitor has respawned, just as we were saying that, so it's not all 3 inhibitors, but 2 inhibitors on the other side of the maps are pretty difficult to deal with. Top and bottom lane pushing leaves you pretty vulnerable to that middle inhibitor being exposed once again, so it's pretty difficult to deal with here for Depati, considering they only really have 2 champions that are significantly good at wave clearing.
And they have no Nexus turret, so they always have to have someone at base if there's some minions there, because there is no defense apart from the minions every 30 seconds. G2 are all lining up in the mid lane. JWoww is already very tanky, as we've seen before, has picked up the recurve, but I'm not entirely sure what it's going to build into. But Willeta has been caught out more than Flash, and this time gets the insect, and Bull looks for the last proc of Silver Bolt. Morden is looking to finish off that AD carry, but is getting chunked down in the process. JWoww is moving forward. He might just be tanky enough to kill the Nexus by himself. LB Perm dropping into the Death Chamber. Kikis will follow him. Mega Inferno Bomb comes out, only clears the minions, and this is going to be the game. Gamers2 pick up this series against Departed and progress on to the finals of EUS Challenge Series number 19.
And Gamers2 looking pretty good, but